Hey everybody, welcome back. Got another 1908 game for you here today. As you can see here on your screen, we'll see if the software gives me any sort of problems today or not. We'll see what happens. As you can see here, these are the standings as they currently stand. We're going to have the Cardinals of the Pirates today. The Pirates have 5-2 or 1.5 games behind Chicago. And the Giants will kind of surprise you. They're 4-4, 500, just barely treading water here after losing the game to Brooklyn. The Cardinals are 2-5. This Cardinal team is not a great team. And we'll see what happens here. And here's Red Murray to start it off for the Cardinals, and he rolls an 11 for a 0. And his double column roll is a 33 for a 1. Now, there's a chance this one might be reduced to a double because of Liefeld, who has a G, but the roll's a 55 out of the range, and right off the bat, there's a whole home run for Red Murray. So much for my theory that the Cardinals are not a great team. Here is the next batter, Albert Shaw, who rolls a 51 for an 8. And that's going to be a ground ball over to Honus Wagner at short, throws to first for the out, one away. Here's Kenichi. He rolls a 34 for a 44. And the little E roll is a 51, which is going to be out of the range, and that'll be a fly ball over to center field, and it's Becker who has it for the out, 2 away. And here's Joe Delahanty. He rolls a 54 for a 45. Little E roll will come up again, and it's a 31, and that's going to be a fly ball over to Wilson in right field, who makes the catch. We go to the bottom of the first inning, 1-0 Cardinals here in the early going, and here's Honus Wagner. Wagner rolls a 33 for a 0. Let's see if we can get one back. Next roll is a 51 for a 5, and that's a double over first base for Honus. That'll bring up Fred Clark now. Clark rolls a 26 for a 30, and unfortunately, just this early, I've got this game frozen. Just a second. All right, sorry for that little blip here, and the roll here is a 26 for a 30. There we go. Fly ball over to Delahanty for the first out, and that brings up Tommy Leach. He rolls a 36 for a 33, and that's a little pop-up over to shortstop. It's going to be O'Rourke who makes the call and the catch for the second out. He said Apaticio. He rolls a 32 for a 26 as a ground ball, this time over to Gilbert, who throws to first for the out. We go to the top of the second. Here is Gilbert, and he rolls a 44 for an 8. That's going to be a ground ball over to Wagner, throws to first for the first out. Here's Patsy O'Rourke. He rolls a 61 for a 27. That's going to be a ground ball over to Leach, who throws over to first for the out, 2 away. Here's Bobby Byrne. Bobby rolls a 42 for a 32, and that'll be a quiet fly ball over to Owen Wilson in right field. And we go to the bottom of the second, and here comes Wilson. Wilson rolls a 66 for a 0. Next roll is a 15 for a 2, and there's a triple for Wilson. That will bring the infield in, even though it's early. And the question is, do we swing away or do we bunt? And I'm looking here to see. Yeah, I think what we're going to do is I think we're going to swing away instead of bunting with Harry Swasina because it's early. His roll is a 46 for a 27 with the infield in. And that's a ground ball over to Byrne, the third baseman, who keeps Wilson on the bag. There, throws over to first for the out. There's one away. Here's Beals Becker. Again, swinging away, and the roll's a 16 for a 28, and there is a ground ball over to shortstop. O'Rourke has it, looks Wilson back to third, throws to first for the out. That's the second out, and there are 2 away now. And here's George Gibson, and he rolls a 64 for a 13 and strikes out, and that does it. And man, I mean, the Pirates had a runner on second base in the bottom of the first and a runner on third base in the bottom of the second, both with nobody out, couldn't score. Here's Bill Ludwig. He rolls a 35 for a 38, and that's going to be a 40, and that'll be a base on balls because of that W that Liefeld has. And that brings up Art Frum, who's really got to bunt in this situation. He rolls a 12 for a 24, and that's a bunt back to Liefeld, who throws to second, and that means that Frum is now the runner on first base, and that brings up Red Murray. That's one of those things about bunting in these games. Murray rolls a 45 for a 14, and there's a base on balls, and Frum moves up to second, and here's Albert Shaw. I was going to say, the thing about bunting in these games you have to realize is that every time you try to bunt, it's not necessarily going to be a bunt, and that's what we just saw there. And so if you're trying to hit a certain number of bunts per game, you're better off just bunting where the situation demands it. I mean, if you're trying to hit a certain arbitrary number, you're not going to do it. Shaw rolls a 26 for a 30, and that's a fly ball to left field. Clark has it for the out. That's the second out, and here's Ed Kenichi. He rolls, a 66 for a 0, and the second roll is a 35 for a 2, and that's a triple for Kenichi. That ends up being triple because it is reduced to play result number 5 because it's the second column roll. We can get into all that and why that happens a little bit later on. That's sort of the long-term focus of the blog and of the channel. Here's Joe Delahanty. Joe rolls a 54 for a 45. Little E will come into play, and it's a 23, which is right above the range. That's a fly ball over to Wilson and right. He makes the play. We go to the bottom of the third. 3-0 now Cardinals. Liefeld up there, and he rolls a 54 for a 45, and the next roll is a 61. Whoops, there we go. That ends up being a fly ball over to Murray in right field for the first out. Honus Wagner now, and he rolls a 62 for a 12. Another little E to worry about, and this roll is going to be a 62. That's a little ground ball over to Kenichi at first base, who signals that he'll do it himself, and he does. 2 away, and here's Fred Clark. Rolls a 25 for a 10, and there's a base hit. Hit number 3 for the Pirates, who are out hitting the Cardinals, but not outscoring them. Tommy Leach now comes up and rolls a 24 for a 13 and strikes out. We go to the top of the 4th, and here is Billy Gilbert. Gilbert now rolls a 36 for a 33, and there is a little E roll, and that's going to be a 13, which is within the range, and that's changes the play result to a 19, which is the third baseman, and that's going to be Tommy Leach called for the air, and that puts a runner on first base in the top of the 4th for Patsy O'Rourke. He rolls a 22 for an 8, and that's going to be a little ground ball over to Leach, who plays it right this time, but has to go to first base as Gilbert moves up. 1 out, and here's Bobby Byrne. He rolls a 36 for a 33. It's a little pop-up over to the shortstop Wagner. 2 away, and here's Bill Ludwig. He rolls a 65 for a 35, and that's going to be a walk again because of that W, and here comes the pitch art from runners on first and second, and we've had 3 walks so far by Liefeld. And Frums rolls a 31, which gets you excited until you look at the card. It's a 13. He strikes out, and we go to the bottom of the 4th inning, just like that. Here is Abaticio. He rolls a 13 for a 14, and he walks. And that'll bring up Chief Wilson, who rolls a 35 for a 13. Another good hit number, spoiled by that 13. Swasina's got 1, too. 1 out here, top of the 4th, runner on first for the Pirates. Swasina's rolls a 22 for a 7, and that is a base hit over to right center. Abaticio ends up stopping at second because of that S. If he were fast, then he would go to third. And that brings up Beals Becker, with runners on first and third, and only 1 out, and the Pirates can get back into this game here. But his roll is a 36 for a 33, and that is a pop-up over to Rourke, the shortstop, and that's the second out. George Gibson now rolls a 23 for a 32. There's a little fly ball over to right field. Murray's got it and makes the catch, and we go to the top of the 5th. Here's Red Murray. He rolls a 25 for an 11, gets the base hit, and then we'll get a stolen base after that. So you got a runner on second base. Albert Shaw up there. Cardinals looking to add to their lead. Shaw rolls a 63 for a 31. That's just a little fly ball over to Becker in center for the first out. Here's Ed Kenichi. He rolls a 34 for a 44. There is a little E roll. That rolls a 21, and so there will be an error on this play. That changes to a 22, and that is a bad pickoff move by Liefeld, who ends up throwing that ball past the second baseman, allowing Murray to go over to third base, and now there's a runner on third base with only 1 out, and Kenichi's still up there. And the roll is a 61 for a 41. That is changed to a 23, and that ends up being a little single where a pop fly will fall safely. That will score the runner. And Wilson, Owen Wilson, the right fielder who was running in to grab that one, ends up being injured. And so we're going to change Wilson out here in the field. This will take a second as we look to identify who we have. We have Miller, we have Neighbors, and we have, there's probably between these two. Mueller showed up. He played in 36 games and 27 defensive games. The rest are all pinch hit opportunities. And Neighbors had only 1 defensive game, didn't actually hit at all. I think we're going to have some fun with this. Let's go ahead and put Neighbors in there. Let's see what happens. And so Cy Neighbors now is going to be the new right fielder, and that brings up Joe Delahanty now with runner on first base and only 1 out. And his roll is a 22 for a 7, and that's another one of these base hits. Kenichi can only go up to second base. That'll bring up Billy Gilbert now, and normally I would bunt with him, but not when you're away. When you're ahead 4-0, we're going to swing away. That's what I was thinking. His roll is a 25 for a 10, and so he gets a little ground ball. This is interesting, over to Liefeld, who throws over to first base for the out. The reason why that is because this is one of the very few places on the boards where a 10 can be defeated by a B pitcher, which is exactly what we just saw there. That brings up Patsy O'Rourke now with runners in second to third, but with 2 outs here in the top of the 5th inning. His roll's a 43 for a 29. There's another comebacker over to Liefeld, who throws over to first for the out. And here comes lefty up to hit. rolls a 45 for a 14. There's a walk, and then surprisingly, he's able to steal second, but you don't see that from a lot of pitchers. Honus Wagner now rolls a 55 for a 7, and there's a single to right field that scores the pitcher. It's 4-1 now, and here's Fred Clark, and the Pirates are on a roll, and Clark rolls a 13 for a 14, and there's a walk. Art Fromm is starting to fall apart here, bottom of the fifth inning, still with a 4-1 lead. Tommy Leach, though, rolls an 11 for a 0, and his second roll is a 62 for a 5, and that is a triple. And that one goes all the way to the right field bullpen. That scores 2, and we've had quite a bit of offense in this game so far, and it's Gibson who has what is really the first real highlight of this game. The triple makes this a 4-3 ball game, and all of a sudden we have to start paying attention to what's going on. Tommy Leach is up there next. Runner on third base, and there's nobody out. And, of course, that will bring the Abaticio's up next. It was Leach who got this. All right, just a sec. I got to change this a little bit. So it was Leach who got the triple. And, yeah, boy, I had the wrong card show up there, didn't I? And we're going to have to figure this one out one way or another. Anyway, Leach ends up getting the triple. We're just going to have to skip through that. Up comes Abaticio, and the reason why I lost sort of the train of thought here is because of this thing right here. I'm not a huge fan of how you just sort of highlight over the number in the roster or in the batting order and the guy pops up, because sometimes your mouse ends up getting stuck for a variety of reasons. Abaticio comes up. They're going to bring the infield in, and we'll see. He will not bunt. We will swing away. The roll's a 16 for a 26, and that's going to be a ground ball over to second base. Gilbert throws over to Ludwig, and then they have to try to run down the runner, and they do get Leach eventually. It's going to be Byrne who tags them out, but Abaticio able to go over to second base, and here comes Cy Neighbors. With a pretty key situation. This is not the guy you want up at all. He rolls a 65 for a 35, and that's going to be a walk. So Neighbors is able to somehow make it on base. There's one out here. Harry Swasina, who's probably an even worse hitter, will come up. We'll bunt with him as well. And we shouldn't have. We should have just swung away. That's a 55 for an 8. I guess it would have been an out against Fromm, but that ends up being a bunt back to Fromm. He throws over to first base to Gilbert for the out, and there's 2 away now, and here's Beals Becker. And Becker rolls a 55 for an 8, and that's a little fly ball over to Shaw, and that ends the inning. We go to the top of the 6th. It is now 4-3 in favor of the Cardinals, and let's see what happens here. Top of the 6th, Byrne now rolls a 15 for an 11, and there is a single by Byrne, and he ends up stealing the base, and that brings up Ludwig. And what do we do? Do we bunt with him? Let's try that. We're going to bunt here with Ludwig. And the roll is a 26 for a 30, and it's a good bunt over to Leach. Leach makes the play, throws over to first for the out. 2 chances to score. This runner from third. Byrne is slow, so we're not going to try to squeeze. Here's Art Fromm, and we just have to hope he doesn't hit into a double play of some sort. His roll is a 26 for a 29. That is a ground ball back to Liefeld, who throws over to first for the out. Byrne is able to hold a third. 2 outs now for Red Murray. And Murray rolls a 64 for a 29. That's another comebacker over to Liefeld, throws over to first for the out. We go to the bottom of the 6th, and here is George Gibson. He rolls a 22 for a 7, and there's a base hit number 7 for the Pirates. That'll bring up Liefeld, and you know that we're going to bunt with him. And let's see what happens here. Roll is a 33 for a 7. We shouldn't have bunted. That's a little bunt over to Kenichi, who throws over to, it is Gilbert covering at first, and that sets up Honus Wagner with the runner on second base and only 1 out here, bottom of the 6th. Wagner rolls a 34 for a 44. That is a fly ball over to Shaw, who makes the play for the second out, and here's Fred Clark. Oh, there you go. He rolls a 15 for a 11, and that is going to score the runner with 2 outs here, and that makes it a 4-4 ball game. And this time I'm going to actually get this right. There you go. Now we got the person right up on here, and now we can get the we can collect the screenshot. Clark with a very, very clutch single, and then is able to steal second base with Tommy Leach up there. And there's now a runner on second base here with 2 outs here in the bottom of the 6th. 4-4 ball game. Leach rolls a 34 for a 44. That's another fly ball over to Albert Shaw, who makes the catch. We go to the top of the 7th inning. It'll be Shaw up there. Shaw rolls a 56 for a 32. There's a fly ball over to right field. Neighbors has it for the out, and here's Kenichi. Ed rolls a 25 for a 10, and there's a base hit for him. That'll bring up Joe Delahanty with a runner on first base. 1 out. Kenichi is slow, so we will not do anything fancy with him. And maybe we should have. The roll's a 21 for a 30, and that's a fly ball over to Clark in left field, 2 away. And here comes Billy Gilbert. I've complained about this card before. Gilbert rolls a 42 for a 13. That's a strikeout. Live field with another strikeout. We go to the bottom of the 7th, and here's Ed Apaticio. Ed rolls a 65 for a 35, and here's a little E roll. It's a 45, so it's out of range. That's a little pop fly over to Byrne and the third baseman for the first out. Cy Neighbors now rolls a 12 for a 25. There is a little E roll, but it's going to be 36, again out of the range. That is a ground ball over to Gilbert. The second baseman throws to first for the out, and here comes Harry Swasina. Rolls a 25 for a 9. That's another pop-up over to Byrne, their third baseman. We go to the top of the 8th. Here's Patty O'Rourke. He rolls a 21 for a 30. Fly ball over to left field. Clark has it for the first out. Bobby Byrne now rolls a 14 for a 43. And there is a little E roll, and that's an 11. And that ends up being a ground ball over to Honus Wagner, who boots it. And Bill Ludwig will be up next with the runner at first base. 3 errors on the Pirates in this game. And Ludwig's roll is a 41 for a 28. That's a ground ball over to Wagner. He actually makes the play this time, but Byrne is able to move up to second. Brings up Art Fromm, and we're going to keep him in this game. He's pitched well so far. His roll is a 34 for a 44. It's a fly ball over to Becker, the center fielder. We go to the bottom of the 8th inning. Here is Beals Becker. He rolls a 62 for a 12. And remember that 12 does not have that W when you're on with nobody on base. However, the little E roll is an 11, which is within the range. That means it's going to be an error, and it's going to O'Rourke, the shortstop. So there's a runner on first base for George Gibson, who's going to bunt again. And his roll is a 35 for a 38. That is a bunt over to the left side, and Byrne has it, throws over to first for the out. That moves up Becker, and here comes Liefeld, the first of 2 chances to score the run. He rolls a 46 for a 13 and strikes out. Strikeout number 4 from. But here comes Honus Wagner, who's always dangerous, 2 for 4 today. He rolls a 52 for a 27. That's a ground ball over to Byrne, who throws over to first for the out. We're going to the top of the 9th inning here in this one, and here's Red Murray. He rolls a 54 for a 45. That's a fly ball over to Neighbors, the right fielder, 1 away. Here's Albert Shaw. He rolls a 36 for a 33. And we're going to have another one of these little E-rolls. It's a 36. That ends up being a little pop fly over to the second baseman, and that's Apaticio who makes the catch, 2 away, and here's Ed Kenichi. He rolls a 55 for an 8, and that's just a little ground ball over to Honus Wagner, makes the play over to first for the out, and we go to the bottom of the 9th, and here comes Fred Clark, and he'll roll a 41 for a 28. That's a ground ball over to O'Rourke. The shortstop throws to first for the first out. Tommy Leach now rolls an 11 for a 0. And then a 42 for a 2, and there's a triple. And I believe that is his second. It is his second triple this ball game. Leach has been absolutely feasting off of Art Fromm, and that's going to be a problem for the Cardinals. Bottom of the 9th inning with 1 out, and Leach is able to get the triple. He's fast, and that means that if they want, the Pirates can squeeze the run in. So we know we're going to have the infield in. There's Apaticio, who has the ability to hit. The question is, do you squeeze or not? I think I'm going to swing away, actually. Infield comes in as they'll try to cut off the run, which is Leach, but there's so many ways Apaticio can win the game for you that we're not going to do any fancy bunting. And the roll here is a 22 for an 8. That's a base hit, and that single will score the runner. And the Pirates have come back to win this one down 4-0 early. They scored 3 in the bottom of the 5th inning, 1 in the bottom of the 6th. And then they got the winning run here in the bottom of the 9th inning. And it all seems to have happened so suddenly. At the beginning of this, I thought, wow, the Cardinals are really going to make me eat my lunch. And they did play well, but it just wasn't quite good enough. Final score in this one is Pirates 5, Cardinals 4. And I will see you tomorrow with more. Bye.